Hungary's prime minister will arrive here for a two-day trip. It will be Viktor Orban's first trip to the Jewish state. The official visit, a clear sign of the blossoming ties between the Netanyahu government and Hungary. The trip is a follow-up to last year's visit to Budapest by Netanyahu. Orban on this trip will visit the parliament, the Knesset, meet Netanyahu, as well as touring the Yad Vashem Holocaust Center and a trip to the Old City to see the Western Wall. Orban, very controversial in Europe, strongly anti-immigrant, right-wing leader that's been accused of playing up anti-Semitic tropes during his election campaign. Here's a look at some of his rhetoric.
The biggest danger is that millions of immigrants are threatening us from the south, and the leaders of Europe, joined up with a billionaire speculator, do not want to defend the borders, but they want to let in the immigrants. This is the truth. If the help offered by Europe to migrants leads people in Africa and Asia to conclude that they can come, then they will come. We have to be humane without creating a pull factor. The election, in my view, also decided that the Hungarian government must stand up for a Europe of nations and not for a United States of Europe.
With me in studio, Professor Alberto Spektorowski. He's with Tel Aviv University. Professor, you're an expert in the rise, really, of nationalism and populism across Europe. Of course, that comes with strong anti-immigration rhetoric. What makes Viktor Orban, what makes Hungary perhaps any different than any other country in Europe?
No, that doesn't make it any difference. The question is that in Hungary, precisely, the nationalist forces won, and Orban is leading them. I mean, the question of immigration, it is like, we could say something like a chutzpah, in the terms that nobody wants to stay in Hungary, and there is no pressure of immigration immigrants coming to Hungary. But he raises the case because it's a case that works well and is a winning card. From the political point of view, that's populism face to face.
It appears, though, that Orban is a supporter of Israel and a strong friend of the Netanyahu government. Is it good, despite his policies back home for Europe, is it good to strengthen ties with him for the Jewish state?
Yeah, that's the interesting case. It is very striking. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised about that, but he is very much in favor of the policies of Netanyahu in Israel. And but if you talk about the Jewish influence inside Hungary, precisely of people like, like would say, multimillionaires like Soros, then he wouldn't even care. He wouldn't, he dares to do some kind of anti-Semitic propaganda in order to gather votes, precisely because it works. So he doesn't care. There's no dissonance in his mind.
Professor, you mentioned he does it because it works. This rise of kind of dog whistle anti-Semitism under the current, but making clear overtones about the dangerous influence of international Jewry. Is that on the rise too?
In some countries it does. I mean, there is not the main point. The international Jewry now is not the main point. The main point is Muslims. Muslims in Europe. That's what is kind of, this is the great case that makes the case of populism, open and rising up.
I mean, support.
Yeah, it's not the Jewish case. But by the way, if you can use some kind of anti-Semitism in the case of Orban, he doesn't care about, because the kind of Jewish mind, Soros, multimillionaire, philanthrope of liberal movements, that's a perfect punching ball.
Do you think he's personally anti-Semitic? He just uses it for political...
I don't think so. I think that he uses it politically, and besides that, he has on his right a much more anti-Semitic party like UBIC, that this is the real anti-Semitic. This is the old-style anti-Semitism.
All right.